My people, every decade of your life is shaped by the decisions you make when no one is watching, in the quiet moments where your future whispers, choose wisely. The next 10 years won't be built by luck, but by the courage you show today. Most people underestimate how powerful one committed decision can be. Cutting out one habit, adding one discipline, taking one bold step. A decade is long enough to transform your entire destiny, yet short enough to pass in the blink of an eye. So the real question is not what the next 10 years will bring, but who you decide to become in them. Every meaningful journey begins with a single choice, a single shift, a single moment where you finally say, "This is my time." And once that decision is made with conviction, the universe moves aside for the person who knows where they are going. The next decade can either be a repetition of your past or a revolution of your potential, and the difference lies in the decisions you make long before the results show up. The decisions that shape a decade are rarely dramatic. They're consistent, subtle, and repeated until your identity begins to evolve. The moment you decide to value your time, your life starts upgrading. The moment you decide to surround yourself with people who inspire you rather than drain you, your mindset sharpens. The moment you decide to invest in your skills, your income, confidence, and opportunities expand. Decades don't change people. Daily decisions do. And when you elevate your standards, things that were once acceptable suddenly become intolerable. You stop negotiating with your excuses. You stop begging for motivation and start building discipline. Your future self is silently watching you today, hoping you choose the decisions that will make them proud. The next 10 years are already on their way. Whether they become a masterpiece or a mess depends entirely on the choices you make in the seconds, minutes, and hours ahead. A decade is not defined by chance. It is defined by the decisions you make when life challenges your patience, your resilience, and your belief in yourself. The most life-changing decisions are usually the ones that feel the most uncomfortable at first. Deciding to rise earlier, deciding to break old patterns, deciding to stop blaming and start building. Comfort destroys more dreams than failure ever will, and the next 10 years will reward the person who dares to step outside their familiar limitations. Every decision carries a ripple. What you choose today echoes into the future you will wake up to tomorrow. When you decide to take responsibility for your life, you enter a rare class of people who refuse to let circumstances dictate their destiny. That single decision alone separates those who drift through decades from those who design them. And the ones who design their decade are the ones who choose growth over ease, purpose over distraction, and long-term vision over short-term comfort. Every decade of your life is shaped by the decisions you make in the moments when everything is quiet, when there are no witnesses, no applause, no pressure, just you and the whisper of your future asking you to choose wisely. Most people don't realize how one decision, made with sincerity and commitment, can tilt the entire direction of their life. But it can. One decision can shift your habits, your energy, your relationships, your income, your health, your confidence, your destiny. The next 10 years are not built by accident. They are carved out intentionally by tiny choices that accumulate into massive outcomes. A decade is long enough to create greatness, yet short enough to slip through your fingers before you even understand what happened. That's why the true power lies in the choices you make today, not someday, not when it's perfect, not when inspiration magically appears. Most people wait for the future to get better before they make better decisions, But the future only improves when you decide to change the present. There comes a moment in life where something inside you says, enough, it's time, and once you reach that moment, life itself seems to shift. The air changes, the energy changes, you begin to carry yourself differently, think differently, act differently. You stop living on autopilot and start living with intention. You realize that if the next 10 years are going to be different, the decisions you make today must be different too. You can't plant old seeds and expect a new harvest. You can't keep the same routines and expect a new identity. You can't repeat yesterday and expect tomorrow to applaud you. The truth is, a decade isn't transformed by dramatic, cinematic moments. It's shaped by the subtle decisions most people overlook. What time you wake up, what you choose to learn, who you choose to listen to, whether you use your evenings to grow or to escape, whether you take responsibility or make excuses, whether you let fear lead you or let courage drive you. These choices seem small in the moment, but over 10 years they build momentum. They compound like interest, growing stronger and louder until they define who you are. The same way a snowball gathers more snow as it rolls, your decisions gather results, and the results gather impact, and the impact shapes your destiny. Every decade asks you the same question: who are you becoming? Not who are you pretending to be, not who do other people think you are, but who are you becoming through your decisions, your habits, and the standards you set for your life. You don't attract the future you want. You attract the future you prepare for. The next 10 years will move in your favor only when you decide to move in favor of your highest potential. And the moment you make a committed decision, the universe clears a path. Doors you never noticed begin to appear. People you never met before start entering your life. Opportunities that were once invisible become obvious. Life expands for the person who knows where they are going. But clarity comes from decision, not the other way around. Too many people wait to feel ready before they choose. They wait to feel confident. They wait for perfect conditions. They wait for approval. But waiting is the enemy of a powerful decade. Your future doesn't reward hesitation. It rewards decisiveness. The people who transform their lives aren't necessarily the smartest, the wealthiest, or the most talented. They are simply the ones who decide early and decide firmly. They decide they won't carry their past into their future. They decide their excuses are no longer acceptable. They decide that their dreams deserve more than half-hearted effort. And once that decision is made with conviction, a new decade begins long before the calendar changes. Think about the version of yourself that exists 10 years from now. The strength they have, the skills they've built, the peace they feel, the success they've earned. That person isn't waiting to meet you by accident. They're waiting for the choices you make today. Every step you take toward responsibility brings them closer. Every hour invested in learning brings them closer. Every decision that aligns with your vision brings them closer. The future version of you is created by the present version of you, decision by decision. The next decade can be a copy of the last one, or it can be a complete transformation. It can be routine or revolutionary. It can be ordinary or extraordinary, and it all begins with a moment where you draw a line in the sand and say, I'm done wasting time. I'm done waiting. I'm done settling. From today, I decide who I will become. That kind of decision doesn't require permission, applause, or approval. It only requires honesty. the honesty to admit where you are, courage to choose where you want to go, and discipline to stay loyal to those choices long after the excitement fades. Decisions reveal your true priorities. Decisions reveal your values. Decisions reveal your destiny. The next 10 years are coming, whether you're prepared or not. The question is not whether the decade will change. The question is whether you will choose to change with it. The decisions that shape an entire decade rarely arrive with fireworks, dramatic announcements, or life-changing fanfare. Instead, they slip quietly into your daily routine, disguised as tiny choices, repeated over and over until they transform who you are at the core. Most people overlook these decisions because they seem too simple, too ordinary, too unimpressive to matter. Yet these are the decisions that determine whether your next 10 years rise toward greatness or dissolve into regret. One of the most powerful shifts in life begins the moment you decide to place a higher value on your time. Time is not just minutes passing, it is your life turning into history, and when you start guarding your hours like priceless currency, everything about your future starts to shift. You move differently, think differently, and choose differently because you realize time is the one resource you can never earn back once it slips away. The moment you decide to change the people you surround yourself with, your environment begins to shape a new version of you. Human beings absorb energy, attitudes, and standards from the company they keep. Sit with people who complain, you will complain. Sit with people who believe in possibility, your mind opens. Sit with people who grow, your ambition ignites. Sit with people who settle, your potential shrinks. Your future is hiding in the room you choose to stand in. When you decide you deserve better conversations, better energy, better role models, and better standards, your life responds with opportunities and clarity you never noticed before. The decision to invest in yourself is another decision that reshapes the next decade. Every book you read, every course you take, every new skill you gain, every hour you devote to learning becomes a building block of the future you are constructing. A decade rewards the person who chooses preparation over procrastination. Your dreams are waiting for the version of you who has built the knowledge, the discipline, and the mindset strong enough to carry them. People often admire the results, but forget the quiet decision that started it all. The decision to grow when no one was clapping, to practice when no one noticed, to study when everyone else was distracted. Skill compounds, confidence compounds, discipline compounds, and the person who invests in themselves consistently will always outrun the person relying on motivation alone. A decade does not change people by itself. Time is neutral. It does not heal, fix, improve, or elevate anyone without cooperation. The real transformation comes from the daily decisions that slowly, almost silently, reshape your identity. Identity is not built in moments of inspiration. It is built in moments of repetition. When you decide to raise your standards, your entire life must rise to match them. Suddenly, you find that excuses no longer satisfy you the way they used to. You begin to feel uncomfortable with wasted days, with broken promises to yourself, with relationships that don't align, with habits that drag you backward. You stop asking, "What can I get away with?" and start asking, "What is the best version of me capable of?" That shift alone is enough to redefine the next 10 years. Once your standards rise, you stop negotiating with your potential. You stop giving yourself the option to quit every time things get inconvenient. You fight for your future instead of surrendering to your impulses. A decade becomes powerful the moment you start choosing discipline over distraction. Distraction is easy, but it is expensive. It steals your decade one small decision at a time. Discipline is difficult, but it pays you back with interest only the future can reveal. The next version of you is created in the moments when you do what needs to be done instead of what feels comfortable. That is where the true transformation happens. Every decision you make today echoes into the life you will live tomorrow. Your future self is silently watching you right now, hoping you choose the decision that brings them pride rather than regret. Imagine that version of you waking up 10 years from now, stronger, wiser, wealthier, more confident, more capable, more fulfilled. That person is not created by luck. They are created by your decisions today. The future version of you desperately needs you to stop doubting yourself. They need you to stop delaying the changes you already know you should make. They need you to act with the kind of determination that refuses to settle for average. They need you to understand that every small decision matters far more than you think. The next 10 years are already on their way. They are not waiting for your readiness, your perfect timing, your motivation, or your mood. They will pass regardless. The only thing you control is who you become as they pass. Some people look back on a decade with pride. Others look back with frustration. And the difference between those two experiences is never talent, never luck, never background. It is always decision. One person chooses growth, the other chooses comfort. One chooses responsibility, the other chooses excuses. One chooses to prepare, the other chooses to postpone. And after 10 years of tiny choices, the gap becomes almost unbelievable. You have the power to make decisions today that will make your future self grateful, inspired, and proud. You have the power to choose the conversations you allow, the habits you repeat, the standards you set, the boundaries you enforce, and the goals you pursue. And when you decide, truly decide, to live with intention, your decade begins to change long before the calendar does. A decade is never defined by luck, chances, or random events. It is defined by the decisions you make when life tests your patience, your resilience, and your belief in who you can become. There will always be moments in life where the easy choice tempts you, where comfort whispers in your ear asking you to stay the same, where fear paints 1,000 reasons not to take the next step. But the truth is, the decisions that shape the next 10 years of your life are often the ones that feel the most uncomfortable, the most demanding, the most uncertain. Growth never arrives wrapped in comfort. Success never shows up disguised as convenience. Every powerful transformation begins with a decision that feels slightly beyond your current self. When you make a decision to rise earlier than your excuses, you begin redefining what your mornings look like, and eventually what your life looks like. When you decide to break the old patterns that have kept you stagnant, even though those patterns may feel familiar and safe, you open the door to possibilities you couldn't access before. When you choose responsibility over blame, your entire identity begins to shift because you stop handing your power to circumstances and start reclaiming control over your destiny. Every time you choose growth over ease, you are writing the story of a decade that will one day inspire you. Comfort has destroyed more dreams than failure ever has. Failure at least teaches you. Comfort simply drains you slowly until 10 years pass, and you look back wondering how life slipped away while you were busy choosing what was easy instead of what was necessary. But the person who refuses to be seduced by comfort becomes almost unstoppable. They understand that a decision made with courage today will reward them countless times over the next 10 years. They know that the discomfort of discipline is always lighter than the weight of regret. They understand that nothing changes until they do, and no decade improves until they make decisions that pull them out of the familiar and push them toward their potential. Every decision you make carries a ripple, and those ripples grow into waves over time. What seems insignificant today becomes defining tomorrow. A 10-minute habit done daily becomes a strength in the future. A small boundary set today becomes a standard that protects your peace and your power. A distraction avoided today becomes an opportunity opened later. That is the unseen mathematics of a decade. Small decisions multiplied by time equal massive transformation. That is why your future demands discipline, clarity, and courage right now. Not next month, not next year, not when things get easier, because they won't. Life waits for no one, but it rewards the one who decides. The moment you take responsibility for your life, real responsibility, not the kind where you blame circumstances or expect other people to rescue you, something inside you awakens. You start walking differently. You start speaking differently. You start expecting more from yourself and less from luck. You realize that nothing improves by accident. Your finances don't change by accident. Your mindset doesn't strengthen by accident. Your relationships don't deepen by accident. Your confidence doesn't grow by accident. All of it starts with decisions made deliberately, consistently, and with purpose. People who drift through decades believe that life is happening to them. People who design their decade understand that life is responding to them. They stop waiting for the perfect moment because they know the perfect moment is created by action, not by hope. They stop seeking permission because they know no one else can build their vision for them. They stop fearing failure because they know failure is simply feedback disguised as experience. They stop depending on motivation because they understand motivation is temporary, but identity is permanent. And identity is built through the decisions you make repeatedly, not the dreams you talk about occasionally. Deciding to elevate your life means deciding to elevate your mindset. It means choosing to see challenges as training. It means choosing to see discomfort as growth. It means choosing to step into rooms that force you to rise instead of rooms that allow you to remain the same. When you make decisions based on who you want to become instead of who you used to be, a new version of you begins to emerge. Stronger, braver, wiser, more capable, more intentional, more powerful. This version of you becomes unstoppable not because life becomes easy, but because you become equipped. There is a version of you waiting 10 years from now, and that version is shaped entirely by the decisions you make in the next 10 minutes, 10 hours, 10 days. You are building the next decade with every choice you make today. Even the choices that seem small, even the ones no one sees, even the ones that appear insignificant, you are shaping your energy, your standards, your reputation, your opportunities, your resilience, your character. A decade might sound like a long time, but it arrives quicker than you expect. And when it does, you will meet the person you built. The choices you make now determine whether that meeting fills you with pride or regret. Whether you say, "Look how far I've come," or "I wish I had started sooner," Whether you stand tall because of the decisions you made, or shrink under the weight of the decisions you avoided. But here is the beauty of it all. You have the power to choose. Right now, today, before the decade unfolds, before the years pass, before the opportunities vanish, you hold the pen, you write the story, and it all begins with decisions that define the decade ahead. The truth is this: a decade is not waiting for you to feel ready. It is not pausing until you find the perfect plan. It is not slowing down so you can catch your breath. The next 10 years are already moving, already unfolding, already writing themselves in the background of your life. And right now, this very moment, you stand at the doorway of a decade that will either be defined by your courage or shaped by your hesitation. Most people don't realize how powerful this moment truly is. They think change starts tomorrow. They think success begins someday. They think transformation needs a special date on the calendar. But life whispers the opposite. Begin now. Begin while you're scared. Begin while you're unsure. Begin while you're imperfect. And somewhere deep within you, there is a voice that knows this. A voice that has been trying to break through the noise. A voice that says, I am made for more. A voice that says, I can do better. A voice that says, I refuse to repeat the last 10 years. That voice is your potential calling you forward, asking you to step into the version of yourself you've ignored for too long. Every powerful decade starts with a decision, and every decision starts with a moment just like this one, where you finally stop negotiating with your excuses, where you stop waiting for motivation, where you stop telling yourself that the right time will magically appear. You look yourself in the mirror and you say, enough, it's my turn now. Imagine your future self watching you right now, waiting for you to choose courage. Imagine them saying, don't quit here, don't settle here, don't shrink here. You're closer than you think. Take one more step. Make one more decision. Give one more push. This is the moment that defines everything. Because that's how every great story begins. Not with perfection, not with confidence, but with a single decision made in a moment of uncertainty. And those small moments become the foundation of a legendary decade. The difference between an average decade and an extraordinary one is simple. Ordinary people wait for change. Extraordinary people create it. You have to become the kind of person who looks at challenges and says, good, this will make me stronger. You have to become the kind of person who looks at fear and says, move aside, I'm going anyway. You have to become the kind of person who looks at the past and says, you don't get to decide my future. That is how leaders are born. That is how champions rise. That is how ordinary lives turn into extraordinary legacies. And yes, there will be days when you feel tired. Days when doubt feels louder than ambition. Days when you question whether all this effort is worth it. But imagine the day 10 years from now when you look back and say, thank God I didn't give up. Imagine looking at the life you've built with the quiet pride of someone who stayed loyal to their dream. Imagine standing on the results of 10 years of commitment, discipline, sacrifice, and consistent daily decisions. That feeling is worth every struggle, every setback, every lonely moment of discipline. That feeling is what your future self is begging you to earn. And if you ever feel like giving up, speak to yourself the way a mentor would. Say, I am not done yet. Say, my story is bigger than this moment. Say, I don't need to be perfect. I just need to be persistent. Say, A decade of greatness starts with a single day of effort. Say, tonight, I choose my future, because every time you choose growth over comfort, you send a message to life that says, I'm ready. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you tell your future, I'm coming for you. Every time you choose courage over convenience, you tell the world, watch me. And life responds. Opportunities appear, strength grows, confidence rises, clarity emerges, doors open, people notice, momentum builds. The decade begins shaping itself around the person you are becoming. This is your moment to make the decision that most people avoid. The decision to take full responsibility, the decision to rise, the decision to commit. The decision to act, the decision to believe, the decision to build a future that does not yet exist, but will exist because you decided it must. So right here, right now, let these words echo in your mind like a promise to yourself. I will not waste this decade. I will not settle for average. I will not live by excuses. I will not repeat the past. I will grow, I will rise, I will build, I will evolve, I will transform. I will design the next 10 years of my life with intention, purpose, and courage. And when you do, when you truly commit, your decade will shift, your life will shift, your destiny will shift, because the power to define your decade has always been in your hands, waiting for the moment you finally say, this is my time.